Hey scholars, welcome to chapter 17.3, where we're looking at chemical hazards. What types of chemical hazards do we face as a human race today? We're going to take a look at a couple of different types, and the first ones are chemicals that can cause cancer, some sort of mutations, or birth defects. And there are three different types that we're going to look at with those toxic chemicals. The first one are carcinogens, or carcinogenic chemicals, that are basically, they're in the form of radiation or viruses that can actually promote cancer. Some of you have heard that term before. Also, mutagenic chemicals, or mutagens. They can be chemicals, they can be radiation that cause mutations and changes in the DNA of the organism. And the last one is the ones that cause birth defects, the teratogens. And they are chemicals that can cause harm to birth, the fetus, or the embryo during the pregnancy, or even at the time of pregnancy, so the time of birth. So those are our three major types of toxic chemicals that we'll be looking at throughout this chapter, or this section anyway. One of the cases the book talks about are PCBs, and that PCBs are everywhere. They are a legacy of the past, I guess, pollution, you would say. They're a class of chlorine-containing compounds. PCBs were actually, between 1929 and 1977, PCBs were widely used as lubricants, hydraulic fluids, and electrical insulators in transformers and capacitors. They also became ingredients in a variety of paints and fire retardants and fabrics, preservatives, adhesives, and pesticides. So back in the time, we used it a lot. In 1977, Congress banned the domestic production of PCBs because they could harm the liver and other cancers that were tested in animals. According to EPA, they probably cause cancer in humans as well. So we banned them, but unfortunately, they're very stable. It's a very stable molecule. It's not flammable. It breaks down extremely slowly in the environment, and actually can travel long distances through the air. It's fat soluble, so it stays in the fat tissues of organisms, and that allows it to be biomagnified up the food chain, and you can see it throughout the food chains and food webs. So yeah, PCBs, not a very good thing. It says, according to the EPA, about 70% of all PCBs made in the United States are still in the environment today. So banned right now, but still found everywhere because of the fact that they are such long-lasting chemicals. All right, this is one potential pathway which toxic chemicals can be transferred throughout the environment. Again, a lot of them having to do with the water cycle, the hydrologic cycle, being in the atmosphere, in the water, held up in crops, and some of them are water soluble, some of them are not. But there's a few of the different pathways that those toxins can transfer around. Some chemicals may affect our immune, nervous, and endocrine systems. And they think that some natural or synthetic, which means man-made chemicals in the environment, can weaken or harm our immune system, nervous system, and endocrine system. And the immune system, just to break it down for you, is specialized cells and tissues that protect the body against disease and harmful substances, forming antibodies and rendering invading agents harmless. So kind of our bouncer of our body, as far as bouncer of the club of our body, kind of making sure everything's okay and regulating everything. The nervous system is made up of the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. And effects can include behavioral changes if there were some problem with the nervous system, behavioral changes, learning disabilities, retardation, attention deficit disorder, paralysis, and even death. And a lot of times there are not only just natural, but there are synthetic chemicals called neurotoxins that can really make a major damage to the nervous system. And the last one is the endocrine system. And the endocrine system is a complex network of glands that release tiny amounts of hormones into the blood streams of humans and other vertebrate animals. So it has to do with your hormones and your behavior as well. And if there's some problems with that, you can see that in your endocrine system. One thing that stems from your endocrine system is the hormone that can tamper with it is the hormonally active agents, or the HAs. They're either called gender benders, thyroid disruptors, or toxic chemicals. Those are couple different types. And they can do a number of different damages to your endocrine system. So one of them is called hormone blockers that disrupt the endocrine system by preventing natural hormones such as androgens, which is the male sex hormones, from attaching to the receptors. So you're basically overall your hormones are just all out of whack. The other one's called gender benders because their possible effects on sexual development and reproduction can have some major problems there. There's also thyroid disruptors, which cause growth, weight, brain, and behavioral disorders. So there's a lot of bad things that go on those are called HAAs, or hormonal active agents, that can really cause some major problems within your endocrine system, affecting those few things. Another one is phthalates, and phthalates is kind of a more recent concern because these are chemicals that are used to soften polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, plastic found in a variety of products such as soft vinyl toys, teething rings, blood storage bags, IV bags, medical tubes in hospitals, and they're used a lot. If they're heated for any certain amount of time, then they can actually leach out some of this softener. The phthalates are found in these softeners. Plus, if a baby's teething on it, that's ingesting it, and phthalates can cause some problems. It says in 2008, a study done by Sheila Sathyanarayani, that's a long one, and her colleagues tested urine from diapers of 163 infants and aged 2 months to 28 months. They found that 81% of the urine had measurable amounts of 7 or more phthalates contained in baby lotions, baby powders, and baby shampoos. Again, as far as exposure of laboratory animals to high dosage of phthalates has caused birth defects, liver cancer, kidney and liver damage, premature breast development, immune suppression, and abnormal sexual development in these animals. So I know they're at low numbers and low levels, but if they go to the extremes and they build up in our system, that can cause major problems for organisms and maybe even humans. Again, other effects of these hormonal active agents are imbalance and drop in male sperm count, which can cause problems in reproduction. Also, cancers have been attributed to them. Testicular is on the rise, breast cancer on the rise, and even genital birth defects as well could be attributed towards these different hormonally active agents. All right. One of the science focus section is on mercury's toxic effects. And mercury is kind of one of those that maybe they say pregnant women shouldn't eat fish, and we'll talk about why that is. But mercury is a teratogen, which is can cause some birth defects, and a potential neurotoxin as well. And once airborne, it's very persistent. It's not degradable. Once it gets in the atmosphere, it is very hard to get out of it. 1/3 of mercury actually comes from natural sources, but 2/3 of it comes from human activities. And so that has been a rising problem. A lot of it mercury is in the electronics that we use. So once it enters the food chain and gets in the air, it could come out of the air into the water, get absorbed by algae or whatever, and then get eaten and pulled out of the food chain. And as you get higher and higher in the food chain, the larger the fish, the larger the organism, the more of that toxin of mercury it has in it. So that is the problem with it. That's why I say pregnant ladies should not eat fish, because if they consume a lot of fish that might have mercury in it, that builds up, can cause major problems for the baby if they are carrying. So that is the big issue with mercury. In 2007, they have identified a lot of mercury hotspots. And it says 2 studies identified 5 mercury hotspots in New England, New York, Nova Scotia, and apparently related to mercury emissions by coal-burning power plants. So I even just found in electronics and coal as well. And so that's what they did. They found some of those hotspots and said, hey, what happened? Maybe stay away from these areas that can be very, very dangerous to humans. How are humans exposed? Well, inhalation is exposed. Vaporized mercury or particulates in the atmosphere of inorganic salts can contain mercury, and that can cause some really, really bad problems. That's how it gets into the humans, as well as eating fish with high levels of methyl mercury, which is kind of the more liquidy, solid form that you see kind of in old thermometers. Effects of mercury on humans can be brain damage, heart and kidney problems. Who are most at risk, again, are going to be women who are pregnant, because they can really cause a lot of baby problems with the baby. Other nursing mothers, women who may become pregnant, they say not to eat shark, swordfish, king mackerel, tilefish, and to limit their consumption of tuna to no more than 170 grams per week, because it could have some major problems. So those are the people that are kind of most at risk as far as mercury poisoning goes, and also having some long-term effects. This is kind of the whole cycle of mercury. Can be burned as far as coal burning plants, incinerators. That's coming. Let's say you're incinerating plastics or electronics would be a bad thing to get mercury and sulfur dioxide in the air. Winds take it, comes down as precipitation in the water, or maybe comes down in runoff, and that can be a big problem. Or if inorganic mercury, if you're breathing it in as far as in the atmosphere, can be a bad thing in humans. Most of it comes off as runoff and ends up becoming, hopefully a lot of it settles out. But some of it does enter the food chain of the food system that gets brought to us as well. But a lot of it does settle out. But that is a problem too, because if this ever had an upwelling that could occur in a lake or an ocean or whatever, that can bring all that stuff up back in the food chain and cause some more problems. All right, so prevention. How do we do this? Phase out waste incineration. Remove mercury from coal before it's actually burned as a fuel source. switch from coal to a more renewable energy resource, or natural gas is, I guess, another one. Convert coal to liquid or gaseous fuel first. That kind of takes out some of that mercury. And also phase out use of mercury in batteries, TVs, other electronics, light bulbs, things like that. The control, though, if we're not going to do any of those preventive measures, is to sharply reduce mercury emissions from coal-burning plants by having better filtration systems put on them, tax each unit of mercury emitted by coal-burning plants, so at least they're paying more. That might help reduce the amount that they're burning, or force them to filter that out. Require labels on all products containing mercury, which most of them do now, and also and recycle mercury-containing electric switches, relays, and dry cell batteries that could contain mercury. And I think that all of the old types of thermometers are gone now as well. I don't think they sell those anymore. All right. So bisphenol A, page 453 of the textbook, there's a little science focus section. It's an estrogen mimic. It says it's a widely used estrogen mimic in bisphenol A. It's a chemical building block in certain plastics, especially polycarbonates, used in a variety of products, including water and baby bottles, sports drinks, and juice bottles, microwave dishes, food storage containers. This is kind of the scary thing, that if you heat it up in a microwave, this is kind of why they say don't microwave your food in plastic, because this could leach out into that. It's found in a lot of common products. There has been some laboratory findings. It said 94 studies by independent laboratories have found the number of adverse effects on test animals from exposure to very low levels of bisphenol A. So even the very low levels has had an impact on animals. Will it affect us? It says these effects include brain damage, prostate disease, breast cancer, early puberty, reduced sperm count, impaired immune function, type 2 diabetes, hyperactivity, increased aggressiveness. I mean, the list goes on as far as human effects. So it's done on animals, hasn't been found in humans just yet as far as the big issue with it. Should it be banned as a precautionary measure? Some people say yes, some people say no. I guess only time will tell. All right, that brings us to the end of section 7.3. We'll see you guys next time for 17.4.